What if I told you the true signs of intelligence have almost nothing to do with your grades or test scores? What if some of your most common habits, the things you do every single day, are actually psychological patterns that science directly links to a higher IQ? Well, let's dive into the real science behind these hidden signs of a brilliant mind.
So that's the big question we're going to tackle. We're going to look at 5 psychological traits that might just prove you're way smarter than you give yourself credit for. As we go, see how many of these feel, well, a little familiar.
Okay, so first things first, we've got to shift our whole perspective. Real intelligence isn't just about what you can prove on a test. It often shows up in how our minds work, in our habits, our curiosity, and even our self-awareness.
We're all used to this old-school view on the left, right? It's all about things you can measure, test scores, grades, IQ numbers. But today, we're focusing on the stuff on the right, the hidden intelligence. This is all about the subtle patterns in the way you think and behave every day.
And that brings us right to our very first sign. And honestly, it's one that so many people see as a negative thing. But what if overthinking wasn't a bug in your system? What if it was actually a feature of a highly intelligent mind?
So the key here, and this is super important, is the why. We're not talking about anxious worrying. This is about a deep-seated need to understand things more completely. You see, highly intelligent people tend to analyze everything because they're just fundamentally curious about how the world actually works.
And the science behind this is just fascinating. Psychologists have a term for it, cognitive reflection. It's that ability to just pause, question your gut reaction, and dig for a more complex answer. You don't just react, you reflect. And that right there is a hallmark of really sophisticated problem solving.
Okay, next up, let's talk about how an intelligent mind actually engages with the world. Because it's not just about what you already know, it's about having this relentless drive to see what everyone else is missing. And this one goes hand in hand with that productive overthinking we just talked about. A ton of research, including a study from the University of London, has found this really strong link between people with high IQs and a personality trait they call openness to experience, which is basically just a fancy way of saying curiosity and imagination.
I just love this quote because it totally reframes something we all do. That impulse to fall down a Wikipedia rabbit hole for an hour or to constantly ask but why, that's not a lack of focus. It's your brain telling you it's hungry to learn. It's an intellectual appetite that needs to be fed. Now, this next one might seem a little counterintuitive, but think about it. The smartest person in the room isn't always the one doing all the talking. A lot of the time, they're the one listening intently, processing all the details that other people miss in their rush to speak.
This isn't just passive silence. It's what psychologists call active observation. While everyone else is busy thinking about what they're going to say next, an active observer is analyzing the unspoken stuff, the tone of voice, the emotional vibe, the gaps in someone's logic. It's a skill that's tied to both brainpower and emotional intelligence.
All right, let's get to our final 2 signs. And these are maybe the most surprising of all, because they deal with self-doubt and enjoying solitude, 2 things our society often really misunderstands. I know, it sounds totally weird, right? But having some self-doubt is actually a sign of really high self-awareness. Knowing your limits, and more importantly, knowing what you don't know, that is a profound form of intelligence. It's what keeps your mind open to actually learning something new. This contrast is so important. On one side, you've got intellectual humility. That's the mark of a truly smart person who's keenly aware of how much there is to learn. And on the other side, you have the Dunning-Krueger effect, which is a cognitive bias where people with lower ability tend to, dramatically overestimate how confident they are. So yeah, a little bit of doubt is actually a very, very good sign.
And finally, do you genuinely enjoy your own company? There was a really interesting study in the British Journal of Psychology that found that highly intelligent people often get less satisfaction from frequent socializing than their peers. But why is that?
This quote just nails it. It's not about being antisocial. It's that for an active, intelligent mind, solitude isn't empty. It's jam-packed with ideas, reflection, and problem solving. They don't just tolerate being alone. They actually use that time to recharge and think deeply, far away from the distractions of small talk.
Okay, so we've covered 5 pretty distinct signs. But what happens when we stop looking at them as individual quirks and instead see them as pieces of a much bigger psychological puzzle?
So let's just do a quick recap of the 5 patterns. We've got productive overthinking, that insatiable curiosity, active observation, intellectual humility, and productive solitude. You see what's happening here? When you line them all up together, a very clear picture of a certain kind of mind starts to emerge. And this, right here, is the big takeaway. If you recognize yourself in these descriptions, it is not just a coincidence. These are all interconnected signs of a mind that is fundamentally wired for deeper, more complex thought. It's an entire cognitive style.
Which leaves us with one final question for you to reflect on. Are these habits just strange little quirks you have, or are they all evidence that your brain is simply operating on a different, deeper level? Something to think about.